Now, when we look at, we're all familiar with what a brain looks like, aren't we? So you've got that outside, that whitey grey bit that looks like half a dozen raw sausages stuffed into some cling film. You know that part, right? The grey matter, exactly. Now, that part of the brain is called the neocortex, or more familiarly to people, the thinking brain. Now, it is what sets us apart from all the other species on the planet. We have a much bigger, much more developed part. And it's the bit that allows us to basically think, to do sums, to invent stuff, to have conversations, to speak, all that kind of thing. The problem with it is it never switches off and it never stops thinking. And we've all been there, and you've had a long week at work and it's 3 o'clock on a Saturday morning and you wake up going, bing, I forgot to send that email. You know, it never switches itself off, and it's always there. And the problem is that for donkey's years, we've sold to that part of the brain by simply turning up and dumping features and benefits on people. And only the first level of benefit, the hole and the drill bit, rather than the shelf. So we turn up, this is what it is, and this is what it does. And we get to the end of our presentation, and we say, do you want it? What do they say? I need to think about it. How often does that happen? All the time.
Maybe it's as good as the no. They have to think about it.
Yeah, same thing. But so I thought about this, and I thought, what if we could do something else? And Joe Navarro's book spoke to me all about the limbic brain. Now, the limbic brain is the bit that makes decisions for us that we don't control. Who we fall in love with and all that kind of stuff. And I guarantee you, every one of you knows a couple. And if you put it down on paper, you'd say they never work. They would never work. You'd never put those together. Everything is wrong. But yet they're the ones that last married for 60 years. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we can all picture that. So I thought, what if we could tailor what we do or think about the limbic brain rather than the thinking brain, okay? So I was trying to come up with a way that I could give the idea of this to an audience. And by strange coincidence, we went out to buy windows. And we were in a window showroom. Have you know the type of thing that there's a room about this size and the guy is walking around going, this is what it is, and this has got this kind of hinge, and this one is made of plastic, and this one here is made of aluminium, and it's got this kind of hinge. Oh my God, I went out of my mind. What was he doing? Selling to the thinking brain. So I started looking around me at anything to get away from this guy. And I saw this thing in the corner. I'd never seen one before. It was, who remembers record stores? Yeah? They used to have a pole in the corner of the room, and it had the posters, and you could flip them around, spin them. Remember those? Yeah? And for some reason, there was always a poster of a girl playing tennis, scratching her bits. Do you remember that with the mini skirt? You're too young, Lee. Anyway, you're familiar with the idea of this thing. You're familiar with the idea of this thing that flipped around. And I saw one, and it had leaves on it about that big. And about that, maybe in or around the same size as an A4 page. And I started spinning it. And what I realized was it had all the different door locks that you could buy. Who knew there were 20 different types of whole door locks? I certainly didn't. And I was playing with them, and I saw one that caught my attention. Now, before I mentioned what it was, I just wanted to make sure that everybody is familiar with the modern type of door lock that you get on a PVC door or a porch door, where you come home, you open it up, you go in, and you yank up the handle, you put the key in, and you lock it. You familiar with that? And then you're left with two choices. You can leave the key in, which we do when we get those locks first, because that's easy. But what happens? 15 minutes later, you're in the middle of a shower, or you're sitting on the toilet, or wherever it is, and somebody comes and they can't get into the house because your key is in the lock. And they're banging on the door, and you're having to run down covered in suds and the towel on and all that. You familiar with that? Yeah? Or your second choice is you hang the key up in the kitchen. And your mate comes and you're in the middle of the football game and you've got the beers cold and your mate comes and they ring on the doorbell, you run out and you go, the key, where did I put the key? Right, we run around looking for the key. So neither option is a good one. You with me? So I saw this, and what it was literally like a cubicle toilet door on the inside. It had a click switch on a whole door, and I'd never seen that before. So I called the guy over. I said, I'm interested in this, because I could see the point of it. So I said, what's that? And he said, they're great. Thanks for telling me. I said, what does it do? And he said, I'm at an age now when I come home from work and I sit down and I've locked the door, and 20 minutes later I realize I've left my charging cable or my reading glasses or something in the car. And it's so easy to be able to just click the switch, run out to the car, come back in, click the switch, and it's done, and no looking for keys. That is exactly what I had already imagined. Convenience. He said, would you like one? I said, I don't know. How much is it? And he said, it's 40 euros, more than the other one. And I said, for 40 euros, I'll find the effing keys myself, thanks very much. Right? Because it was, to me, the value didn't outshine it. And he said, I thought that's what you'd say. I said, why did you think that's what I'd say? He said, because we've never sold one. Everyone says the same thing as you when they hear it's 40 euros. I said, no one ever. No one. Why do you keep it in stock? He said, because we use it like a closing mechanism. What do you mean closing mechanism? He said, you know when you go and you negotiate over a car and there's no money left and they offer you free mats? I said, yeah. He said, that's what we do with it. It's a get them over the line job. And I said, God, so you've never sold one? No. So I thought about this. And I'm going to do an experiment here. I'm going to see what would happen if we looked at this a different way.
In theory, he sold loads of them.
Sorry?
In theory, he sold loads of them.
In theory.
Because he's built it into the price of the other thing, knowing someone like you is going to say, this is class, I want this.
Possibly.
It's too expensive, and now I've got it.
Yeah.
It's in your pocket, and you paid him for something.
Yeah. Would make sense, wouldn't it? But here's the thing. It had never occurred to them to just build it in. You with me? They were trying to sell it for the 40 euro and nobody wanted it. So I thought differently about this. Now, what I'd like you to do is, have all of us at some point left the bathroom or the bedroom 5 minutes later than we knew we really should have to make it to work on time? We've all been there, haven't we? Yeah? And you come down the stairs, and all you're thinking of on the way down the stairs is the boss standing inside the door of work, tapping his watch, go, where were you? That's the third day this week. Yeah? And we're all thinking that. And you get to the bottom of the stairs, you've got your car key in your pocket, and you're ready to go. And you get to the door, and there's no key in the lock. What happens? Panic. You start running up and down the hall looking for the keys. Where's the keys? Where's the keys? Darling, where's the keys? Yeah? We've all been there, yeah? How long does it take us to find them? Ages. Now, my dad, when I was young, used to talk all the time about a thing he called a blind panic. And when I was a kid, I didn't know what he was talking about. Turns out, when we get into a state of panic like that, we get blind to what's right in front of us, don't we? We've all been there, right? Now, when you've been in that situation where it was just being a few minutes late for work or whatever it was, and you get into that level of blind panic, yeah? Just for a moment, close your eyes for a second and remember what that was like. That moment of blind panic and how it made you feel. Now what I want you to do is I want you to imagine a scenario. It's 3 months' time. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. You're running like hell down the stairs. You have 3 kids coming behind you. You get to the bottom of the stairs. You look in the door and the living room is ablaze. You look over your shoulder down the hallway at the kitchen and the kitchen is ablaze. You know in your heart and soul you've about 40 seconds to get through that door. And you look at the door lock and there's no key. How do you think your blind panic would be then? How do you think that would feel? Now, once again, just for 2 seconds, close your eyes and imagine that feeling. What would it mean to you to know that that switch will make sure you never have to feel like that? As a show of hands, who might like one now? Yeah? And the next question I have for you is, what would you be prepared to pay me for it? Would it be a bit more than €40? If I asked you for an average of €100, who'd take it still? Everyone would. And that's 2.5 times the asking price. And then if I said, while we're at it, who'll take one for the back door to be safe? What would you say? Yeah? Do you think there might be a chance that I could get a 200% closing rate at 2.5 times the asking price? What would that make to your products or services if you knew how to tap into that? And the funny thing is, that didn't happen by accident. That's a science. By figuring out a certain process. And you might want to write these 2 things down. When I brought you through your own experience, where I actually walked you down the stairs and got you to remember being in your own hall when you couldn't find the keys, and I asked you to close your eyes, something happened. Every one of you stopped seeing me, and you saw yourself in your hallway. I created a picture. And what's the old phrase? A picture paints 1,000 words. And I managed to actually make you develop 1,000 words, the length of a Leaving Cert essay, in a matter of seconds. That's what created the power of that. But when I moved it forward into the future, what I did was I specifically enunciated really clearly running down the stairs. Now, when you got to the bottom of the stairs and I said, look at the room and it's ablaze, and look over the shoulder of the kitchen, look at the door lock, I asked you to close your eyes again, didn't I? And I asked you to imagine how that would feel. And what happened? You saw another picture. But because I had put the word running down the stairs into it, you saw a slightly different picture. You saw a picture in your mind with movement in it. And that's called a video. And this is the bit that really matters. If a picture paints 1,000 words, a video paints 1,000 pictures. And that's 1,000,000 words in your heads in 15 seconds. That's how powerful pictures and emotions are when it comes to selling. Does that make sense? Wouldn't you love to be able to do that? Yes or no, guys?